Sawyer goes to Locke's house and they're playing backgammon. And if you notice, Locke grabs the black pieces. If you remember back in Season 1, Episode 2, he's playing with Walt, showing him how to play, and he grabs the white pieces. And he's talking about that there's only two sides, white and black. And I'm not sure what it all means, but it definitely seemed important back in Season 1. It could mean that Locke is going into a little more evil state. So sure enough, Sawyer tells Locke about Kate wanting to break up Ben to see Miles, or as he calls him, Bruce Lee. And then Kate knew in advance that Locke would go to see Miles to see what he has to say to Ben. So when Locke and Sawyer go to the boathouse, Kate sneaks in and goes down with Miles to see Ben. Ben looks pretty scared when he sees Miles, but doesn't seem surprised, really. And the funny thing is, if you notice, he is reading the book that Locke gave him earlier. Now I found this conversation the most interesting part of the show. It shows Miles, and he says to Ben, you know who I am? Ben says yes, and Miles says, do you know who I work for? And then Ben nods his head and says yes. And he says, you know he's put a lot of time and energy into finding you, and that I can tell him I found you, or I can lie and tell him that you're already dead. But I can do that for $3.2 million. And then Ben says, why not 3.3 or 3.4? Now my first reaction when I heard this was remembering in episode 2 when they showed Miles flashback into when we think it was Echo's room. It could be someone else, but when he goes to Inglewood, California and is doing his ghost busting thing and says, where is it? And you hear a noise, and we see behind the bookcase there's a bag of money. My first reaction was I thought that was a 3.2 million. If that's a flash forward, Ben placed it there, and that Ben is the one actually making the noise. That's something through time shifting. He's not able to be seen, and that's probably why people are looking for him, that they can't find him. Ben says, what makes you think I have access to that kind of money? And Miles says, don't treat me like I'm one of them, pointing to Kate. I know who you are and what you can do. We know that Ben's pretty powerful and that he can travel off the island whenever he wants to, but the Losties don't know that. And Miles says, I need it, I want it in 1 week. But then when I rewatched it, it definitely seemed more and more to me like it was a code. The 3.2, why that specific number? Only people in a certain debt ask for a specific number of money. But I don't think he's in debt. He probably is getting paid a lot just to go to the island. I think 3.2 is definitely code. We know the Frades use code. And that 3.2 might be referring to how many people can get off the island, like 3 times 2. And then when Ben says, why not 3.3 or 3.4? But I definitely think that it is code. We know Lost too well to know that a number like that is just random. It definitely has some significance. Miles tells Kate what she wants to know, that the people on the freighter know about her, about her murder, and then they get caught by Locke, and Locke later goes into Kate's room, and Kate tells what Miles said to Ben, and he goes, and says, you're banished. And what's new? Kate goes to Sawyer as usual, and Sawyer's reading a book, and the book is called The Invention of Morel, and supposedly the book's about an island with the main character Morel creating a machine to reproduce reality, which I thought was pretty fitting. Sawyer tries to comfort her, and he says he unbanishes her, and yeah, that leads on to other things. We go back to the island in Jack's group, and it shows Dan and Charlotte. They're over a table, and Charlotte asks Dan what he remembers. And there's 3 cards on the table flipped over, and he gets 2 out of 3 right. He gets the 6 of clubs and the Queen of Diamonds right, but he misses the 3 of spades. Now keep these in mind because I'm going to talk about them a little bit later too. Charlotte says 2 out of 3, that's progress, and Dan says, only 2 out of 3, Charlotte, that's not progress. Now something's pretty weird here. Why is he having why are they having trouble remembering the cards? One of the ideas I had is that all 4 people were supposed to be on the plane. That we know Frank was supposed to be. Maybe all of them were. All the other 4 were supposed to be on there too. And that's why Abaddon called them to be there, like they're meant to be there. If the island will allow them to go. I think why he can't remember the cards is because he has some sort of disorder where he can't remember. If you episode 2, when he sees the flight and he sees that they found it, he says, "I don't know why I'm crying." And maybe because of this disorder of having trouble remembering things, he hears about the island and its healing properties, and he wants to go there. But he gets there and he finds out it's not working. Jack and Juliet make Charlotte call the emergency number on the phone, and they call back to the boat, and Regina picks up and says they haven't seen Desmond or Saeed or Frank yet, and Jack gets all mad, and Charlotte and Dan look at each other. They don't seem surprised at all, like they know it's going to take longer for them to get there somehow, or if that's even where they're going. Locke goes to see Miles and puts a grenade in his mouth so he won't talk. And I bet Miles was actually relieved that when a scary old bald guy came into his room and it's been deserted on the island for 3 months and says open wide. I bet he was happy to see that it was a grenade. We go back to the courtroom and it shows the district attorney and Kate's lawyer and Kate, and they're talking about what her sentencing will be, and it turns out that the district attorney says you won't have jail time, and Kate jumps at the opportunity and says she'll sign any papers that she gives her. And it seems like the district attorney, all she's trying to do is get it so Kate will stay in one spot. Maybe she's working with Dharma somehow to get her to stay so they can keep an eye on her. And then she goes outside, Kate goes outside, and she sees Jack. And Jack basically says that he still loves her. And Kate asks if he wants to go back to their house and see the baby. And Jack doesn't want to, basically. He tries to get out of it, but says he still wants to hang out with her. And Kate says it won't work if you don't want to see the baby. And I'll talk a little bit in just a little bit of why I think Jack doesn't want to see the baby. Kate goes back to her house, and it's actually really nice. I'm sure that Oceanic compensated the Oceanic 6 well for their time spent on the island. So she's supposedly in Southern California, where it usually never rains, and for some reason there's like 7 umbrellas right at the front door.